All right, everybody, welcome in to another edition of the podcast for Strange Appalachia. This will be the October 2022 episode, and tonight we're going to talk about sort of a seasonal phenomena that happens in our area where people share Facebook predictions of how the weather is going to be in the winter based on signs that they have been passed down, I guess would be the best way to describe that.
Yeah, it's kind of a tradition we have here in the Appalachian Mountains where we do different things by the signs. You'll hear people say that. They plant by the signs, they harvest by the signs, um, predict the weather by the signs. And so we'll just go over a few of those for the evening. So,
Yeah,
JD,
sure. Yeah, I'll jump in here. Um, we were talking before we started. A lot of these signs come to us from sort of the heritage we have from our Irish descent. Um, a lot of the Appalachian Mountain has been settled by Irish settlers. If I could get my words straight, that'd be nice. Um, and oddly enough, our weather here, especially in the middle Appalachians to northern Appalachians, is very similar and reminiscent of what one would see in the majority of the British Isles, England, Ireland, those types of areas, even though they're not on the same line of latitude, which is what weather patterns normally follow. And it's not on the same, or it is on the same weather pattern because the way ocean currents work and weather patterns and stuff, it basically pushes weather from where we're at northward across the ocean and into the English Isles area. So that's one reason that these Irish settlers coming in were very, I guess, comfortable in this area because it reminded them a lot of the weather of their own home region there.
yeah, it's one thing you can read in notebooks or read diaries and stuff of these people, and that's one thing that they talk about is how it reminds them of home. And of course, it's the same mountain range that's just been divided over time. So
And
it's
even extending down into Africa.
yeah,
Um, so it at one point in time was a very long mountain range. It predates the continents breaking apart. So very old, very long mountain range.
yeah. I know that there's a Facebook post that talks about the Appalachian Mountains being older than bones. You know,
Yeah.
so that's a pretty interesting post.
It's not entirely factually accurate, but generally speaking, it's gets the general idea down.
Right. All right. So you
Um,
want to start us out talking about some persimmons?
Sure. So one of the most commonly shared Facebook posts that I've seen, especially here in the last little bit, last 2 or 3 years, is the shape of a persimmon seed, um, telling you what the winter is going to be like the following winter. And of course, you can use either grown persimmons, like ones that you have grown or grow near you, or store bought ones. But they're a fruit that grows on a very common tree here in the Appalachian Mountains. And um, when you cut them open, the seed is sort of in the middle of them. And depending on how you cut them open, you're either going to find a seed that's shaped like a knife, a sword, Lord have mercy, a knife, a spoon, or a fork. There we go. Those are the words I was looking for. And the general folklore goes that if it's shaped like a spoon, you'll be shoveling snow all winter. If it's a fork, it'll be a mild winter with sort of light blowing wind or blowing snow. And then if it's a knife, then the winds are going to be very strong and they'll cut through you. Um, so that's sort of how that legend goes.
Yeah, it's interesting that persimmon. Um, it's really good to eat. If nobody's ever eaten one, I suggest you find some and eat them. But just make sure that it frosts before you eat them because they're really, really sour unless it's frosted. And my dad always said, or my grandpa also, he used to say it'll lock your jaws because of how sour it is. So But it was a really important plant for the settlers because it's a fruit that's easily harvested this time of year. So the other thing about them that's interesting is possums love persimmons, and you'll see a lot of possums around the area. So that's some small game that they could hunt, and the persimmon tree was where you would hunt it at. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, moving into looking at the legend itself or the folklore itself, surprisingly, there is no evidence that this is correct. Go figure that a random fruit seed would not tell you what winter was going to do. But yeah, there's no evidence to this, and yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. It's a fun legend. It's cool that you can cut a persimmon open and get shapes of utensils out of it, but it doesn't really help anything.
Yeah, I know that you had said that you'd heard mom talk about it a lot, but I'd never heard this legend growing up.
Yeah, I heard mom talk about it. I was probably in high school the first few times I heard it. So that would have been after you moved out. So I don't know if this is a newer one that's come up and mom's picked up on it since since you had moved out, or if it's just one of those obscure things that comes up so rarely that you just
Yeah,
miss.
yeah, I don't know. Um, but yeah, like you said, it's a really fun legend. It's pretty cool that people even managed to find that in the middle. I know, like if I were to cut a persimmon seed and you were to cut a persimmon seed, you can get a different cut. So you might get a spoon and I might get a fork.
Yep, it all depends on how you cut it.
Yeah. So next, I think the woolly worm.
The
Um,
woolly bear.
yeah, woolly bear is another term they use. So this is I don't know a lot about the actual caterpillar itself biologically, but I know that my grandpa used to say that the larger the brown stripe, the worse the winter was going to be.
Yep.
So if you ever see them, there's three stripes. It's a black stripe, a brown stripe, and a black stripe. Um, did you research any of this thing to get
I
some of
did.
the? I know you would.
Yeah, so it's actually a caterpillar that turns into a moth,
Okay,
specifically a tiger moth. I would tell you what its scientific name is, but I would butcher it, so I'm just going to skip that. Um,
fair enough.
and it occurs all the way up into Canada, down into majority of the United States. Is a pretty common little thing. Um, it is poisonous, um, so it's not a fun one to pick up and try to eat. Not that many people would actually pick up and eat caterpillars, but if you do, don't pick this one up. Um, and again, much like the last one, there is no scientific evidence that its color changes based on the winter weather. However, it is a good indicator of the previous summer's weather. Basically, the older they are and the more they were able to eat during summer and up into the middle to late point in the fall is going to determine how big they're able to grow and how big that middle stripe is, that brown stripe. So they're a good indicator of that, but other than that, they don't really have much bearing on winter.
Huh. That's interesting. I know Papa swore by it, and the first year I noticed it um, was the year that we had the blizzard. So blizzard of '92, I guess, or '93.
92.
Um, and I know the reason I remember it is because they were thick. There was a lot of them, more than usual. And Mom tried to avoid running over them when she saw them in the road.
Well,
So just a side note there.
sounds about
So
right.
I always assumed it was real because we had a big stripe and then we had a blizzard.
Yep. But no, there's no indication that they are in any way predicting the upcoming weather. Again, it shows good on the weather previous leading up to it, but not after you see that stripe.
Interesting. Um, so keeping with insect themes, Did you research anything about ladybugs and stink bugs or kudzu beetles?
Other than I hate all three of them, no.
So they've found some indications that the way that ladybugs will hibernate for the winter can actually determine whether it's going to be a bad winter or not. Um, and the deeper or the yeah, I guess the deeper they hibernate, the more likely it is for there to be a bad winter. And it doesn't always line up, but you know there is some accuracy to it.
I
So
could sort of see that because, I mean, there are animals that, obviously react to the weather. Birds flying south for the winter. Um, obviously they have some kind of sense that it's getting colder and that things may be worse or better than normal. And I assume it's all got to do with atmospheric pressure.
yeah, it would make sense.
And so, I mean, I could see some of these being accurate. Um,
Yeah. Now the thing about those beetles is a lot of them aren't native. Like the kudzu beetle is not native to Appalachia.
Neither is the
Um,
ladybug.
there are a few native ladybugs, but not the ones that we traditionally see.
Yeah, the ones we traditionally see are just like most of our invasive species have entered from the greater Asian continent,
Yeah, it's an Asiatic ladybug.
which would be the same with the kudzu beetle, I assume, because
Yeah,
kudzu came from Asia as well.
correct. Um, all right, what's the next one on the list?
Another one that I've seen a lot of, and probably it's not animal themed, but the number of fogs in the morning in August is the number of snowy days in the winter.
Yeah, also heard it. The number of fogs in August are the number of snows in July, or not July, January.
Yeah. Um, Snows in January would probably make more sense than snows in winter, although most of the places that I looked said snows in winter. Um, and of course, again, it has no bearing on it whatsoever. Um, because 90% of the time it seems like there's a lot of fogs in August, or I'm sorry, not a lot of fogs in August and a lot of snowy days in the winter. Because again, you're looking at 3 or 4 months compared to 1 month. So, you know, 1 month is going to be hard to keep up with an entire season.
Right.
So,
Um, so one of my favorite ones is the moon ring. So if you look at the moon sometimes when on a really cold night, there will be a ring around the outside of it. And that ring is actually formed from ice crystals. It's just reflecting ice crystals. Um, Supposedly, the number of stars trapped in that ring will be the number of inches of snow you will get on a snowy night. So, have you heard that one?
I have not.
Yeah. So, that was an interesting one. Of course, one of the things about that is if you can see the moon, it's probably not going to snow.
Right, because there's no clouds.
No clouds. But that's one of the old legends. And I actually heard Papa talking about that one a lot too.
Well, that's another one that I could see having some factual evidence to it because, again, that ring is being formed by those ice crystals or in summer water crystals. So, I mean, that means
Yeah.
there's at least, you know, moisture in the atmosphere.
Yeah. So maybe if there's a front coming through and it's on the front of it,
Yep,
a cold front rolling in and you're seeing it before the clouds actually get there or the snow gets there.
yep. So that's one
Um,
I could see having some bearing on it. I mean, again, I haven't researched that one at all, but that one at least in my mind makes more sense than caterpillar color.
right. And I doubt there's any accuracy to the number of inches, but
Right.
you know, it's a thought. It's a legend. It's pretty good. I like it.
Um, another legend going back a little bit, and this one's more of a joke than anything. But one time I was on a scout trip, and a guy said that the wind was blowing one way and it stopped and was blowing the other way, so that meant it was going to snow that night. Do
And
you
he
re-
also, I
do you
remember that. Yeah. He also said it had something to do with the way the fire was going to fall as well.
No, that was the slope of the hill that was like 200 yards away was going to make the fire fall a certain direction.
Yeah.
And so he told us it was going to snow that night, and it was about 75 degrees in the middle of August.
Yeah. But it
So
had to do with the way the wind was whipping around the fire.
yeah,
Yeah.
again, that was just a fun aside. Those were not serious.
That's an inside joke.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I don't have any more of the signs that we've covered. So,
yeah, that was
something.
pretty much all the ones I had. The only other ones that I researched at all that we haven't talked about is the thickness of the husk of corn
Huh.
and the outer skin of an onion. And those, much like your ladybug ones, tend to be right. Um, and again, it seems to be because the plants have some sense of atmospheric pressure, kind of, I guess.
And so they grow a thicker husk to protect them from the cold.
Yep. But in my mind, I'm also thinking that it might just be kind of a luck of the draw that those had thicker husks, so they were able to live longer, if that
Yep.
makes sense.
That does make sense.
So again, that one could go either way, but that is one that I found while researching the woolly worm. Actually,
Huh. That's pretty cool that they go together then.
well, it was on the same site together, and then I had to go into like 9 different places to research that one. But it was weird that they were linked on one.
Huh. Interesting.
Yep. So I know another thing you wanted to talk about, and it's an area that I am almost useless in, is planting by the signs. So I'll let you talk about that, and then I'll just sort of chip in where needed.
Well, to be honest, I'm not that up to date on it either. And it's one of those things that I really wish that I had paid more attention to with when Papa was around. I asked my granny about it, or our granny about it, and she said the best way to know the signs is to buy an almanac. And she was a firm believer in the almanac telling you when to plant.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So is
so
mom.
yeah, so anybody out there that knows the signs to plant by, uh, give us a holler, leave us a message, text us, call us, whatever. We're out there on Facebook, pretty easy to get a hold of us, and share some of those signs with us because I'm really interested in knowing that. And the information is spotty at best.
Mm-hmm.
So
Which one would expect when dealing with astronomical or astrological phenomena?
yes, I mean it's a lot of guessing. I mean,
Yep.
it's kind of like the cows lay down before a storm,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes they do, and then sometimes they're standing out there and getting rained on,
Yep.
and there's just no telling. So
Yeah, I had a buddy of mine that lived across the street while we were growing up, and he swore by the cows laying down in the pasture down the road from us here, and it was going to rain. And we drove by one day, and every single cow in the field was laying down, and it didn't rain for another 2 weeks. So
yeah, those cows don't really know,
yeah, I gave him a hard time about that for a long time.
as you should.
Yep.
All right, JD, you want to close us out?
Sure. Um, I want to thank you all for listening to us. Obviously, if you've made it, almost 20 minutes into this recording, we're obviously doing something you like. So we ask that you please leave us a like and subscribe. If you got any ideas of things you'd like us to research or any places that you'd like us to come investigate, let us know. Reach out with one of those messages. Leave us a comment, whatever you feel like doing. You can also find us on Facebook, which is Strange Appalachia. And here soon, we are working on a better platform for our podcasts. We'll hopefully within the next couple of weeks have some stuff up on all major streaming platforms, not just on YouTube. We're going to start off with a couple of, I guess, revisits to some of our early episodes on that format, and then slowly and periodically upload our newer stuff onto those platforms as well. So wherever you're listening to us, we hope you really enjoyed it, and come find us on Facebook.
Thanks, guys.